Hi, and welcome to another episode of She Leads Biotech, the podcast where we celebrate the achievements of women in the life sciences. My guest today is building something that could fundamentally change how we approach fertility and IVF. From a path that didn't start in bioengineering at all, but was driven by what she calls scientific FOMO, to that moment in a lab where she saw heart cells beating in a dish and realized just how powerful this field could be, her journey has always been guided by one thing. How do we take incredible science and actually make it matter for patients? That thinking led her to found Vitra Labs, with a bold ambition to rethink IVF entirely, not to improve it incrementally, but to change the paradigm. To move away from hormone-heavy, invasive processes and build something that's more accessible, more patient-friendly, and ultimately more effective. And alongside building this company and navigating the realities of being a first-time founder CEO, she's also just stepped into a brand new chapter as a first-time mum. So there's lots to talk about. Please welcome founder and CEO of Vitra Labs, Ivana Muncie-Vasic. Ivana, hello.
Hi, Sharon.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be doing my first podcast.
Oh, is it your first?
Yes.
We'll be gentle. We've had a few firsts and they've always enjoyed it. So thank you so much for taking the time out to spend some time with us. I know you're a very busy lady right now, not just professionally, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. But before we start, where did it all start for you? What drew you to the field of bioengineering, I think is what you majored in?
Yeah. So actually, I didn't start as a bioengineer. When I was in college, I was super curious. I always had scientific FOMO. So I started in neuroscience, and then I switched my major to biochemistry, and then I thought for a little bit of switching into theoretical physics, and then I ended up in chemical engineering. It wasn't until grad school that I really started my career in bioengineering, and I was interviewing at a lot of different programs at UC Berkeley, Duke, Northwestern. And so I was at kind of a crossroads, and I remember I was interviewing at the lab that became my PhD lab. And my future PI showed me this dish, and there were cardiac cells that were derived from stem cells, and they were just beating in the dish. And so you could see just like a cell culture dish, and it was just on the bench, and you could see it moving because the heart cells were beating so vigorously. And I just thought that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And then, they had engineered these cell lines to have calcium signaling, essentially was kind of lit up with green. So you could see under the microscope, whenever it beat, there was this pulse of green color that would go through, and so you could track all sorts of cellular behaviors with outside of the body. And so I thought that was just so incredible and science fiction almost. And so that's how it all started. And my PI at the time, Todd McDevitt, was all about how do we generate cells outside of the body and make them functional for use in cell therapy or disease modeling, which cell and gene therapy revolves around making cells do things that you want them to outside of the body, and then studying that to develop.
And sometimes you have to modify them a bit. Do you modify them and put them back into the body to change the...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Right. So there's all these applications and how we can use cell therapies, right? So for replacement therapy, for example, for spinal cord injury, right? Patients who, have their interneurons and their spinal cord damaged by some traumatic event, you could theoretically generate neurons in the lab and then inject them back in. There's challenges, of course, with getting those cells to connect with the existing tissue infrastructure. And so we've been thinking, the Gladstone Institutes where I did my PhD and then my postdoc, they also focus on differentiation of cardiac cells. And part of that was the idea that maybe after a heart attack, when scar tissue prevents the heart from beating and doing its job correctly, that we could potentially, inject or replace those cardiomyocytes, they're called, they're muscle cells of the heart, those that have been grown in labs. But we still face challenges with actually getting the electrical circuit to connect with the new formed cells with what's already in the heart. So there's still a lot to be done there in the entire field, but I find it very exciting to be able to look at biology outside of the body.
Absolutely. I have to say, it's one of the things that I probably enjoy most about doing this podcast is the opportunity to be schooled in these things that fascinate me.
And now with, stem cell technologies, they're becoming a possibility and a reality. So
you did your PhD in bioengineering?
Yes.
Right. And one thing I do want to ask, because when I was doing that, I saw that you did University of California, PhD in bioengineering, University of Berkeley, California in Berkeley. So were you in Berkeley and San Francisco at the same time? Was it a joint program? How does that work? Bearing in mind, as a Brit, I know very little about the American education system. It totally confused me. I thought you'd done the same degree twice. I was like, what's she doing?
No, it's a joint program between UCSF and UC Berkeley. So UC Berkeley is a fantastic research, both are fantastic research universities. Berkeley maybe has more of a reputation to be more on the kind of basic science side. UCSF is also connected to, this incredible hospital, this kind of clinical network. And so there's slightly more emphasis towards clinical translation at UCSF. So that's kind of the idea of the program that combines these two powerhouses of universities to do really world-class training of young students in bioengineering and biomedical sciences. So I did all my classes at Berkeley, which was so funny because you feel like you're on top of the world. You get into one of the best programs in the country for biomedical engineering, and you're a grad student, so you're feeling like you should already know a lot of things, and then just taking classic courses with the Berkeley undergrads really humbles you very, very quickly. They're very, very smart and scary bunch of people who just know much more than you as a grad student. But then I did all my lab rotations at UCSF.
Right.
And I was really always more interested in how do we translate this to patients. I think that's maybe been my guiding light in my research and always been what has motivated me to further the research, not just the curiosity of, how does biology work, which also needs to be there, but is not my primary motivation. Yeah, I think especially for us, for what we do now, this hormone-free IVF, what the company is doing, what Vitra, my company is doing right now, I think even for all the scientists who love the science and they're really interested in, mechanistic questions of biology, that thread of this is really going to help a lot of women have children. I think that's always in the background of everything we do. I think for some fields, it's more prevalent than others. I just always knew that I wanted to be very close to something that was going to touch patients' lives. And so that's why I made, I think, almost all the decisions I made in my career.
Very sensible. So you went to Gladstone, did your postdoctoral, gave you the opportunity to look at all these different areas of cells and what they were doing. Did you get involved in all of them?
So at Todd's lab, really focused on both cardiac and neural. I was really interested in stem cell biology and kind of understanding why and how these pluripotent stem cells, which are naive in a way, they can generate any cell type that's found in the body, whether it's, cardiac or neural or bone or liver. But I was more interested in understanding how they form the blueprint of the body at very early stages and how they received signals to become different cell types. And so actually I was really, really interested in the germline and from probably the beginning, I was interested in egg cells and sperm cells and their biology, with the eventual kind of thought in mind that this could, I would eventually go into, women's fertility research.
Right.
And
that was always your aim. Was that always your?
It was for a lot of my PhD. Yes, I wanted to be involved in this area. I didn't know that I would form a company. I thought maybe I would become a professor. So the company was a surprise. But I always knew for a long time in my academic research, I was interested in the female reproductive system.
Okay, all right. So you did found a company, 2021, I think. Was it December 2021?
I can't even tell you when it was.
I'm telling you that. See, I told you, I've done my research. December 2021, you found Vitra Labs.
That's right.
Okay, there you go. Trust me, I know this.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst for that? What stopped you being a professor and said, you know what, I'm going to be the founder of the CEO of this company? And what was the objective that you were going to set out to do by founding this company?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I've been, in preparation for this podcast, I've been giving that a lot of thought. So I had this instinct that there are some projects that are more conducive to doing in an academic setting, and then there are others that you kind of need to do in an industry setting. And I realized that the work that we needed to do to discover a method to perform hormone-free IVF, that we needed a discovery platform. And this platform was going to be very expensive and difficult to build in an academic setting. And so I realized we just needed a bigger team and more resources to do it. So it wasn't this philosophical desire to start a company. It was more like, this is the development that needs to happen, and it needs to happen in an industry setting. I'm pretty practical and data-driven as a person. I think I'm a CEO now, but I feel more like a scientist at all times. So that's how when I think about things, I just go from what I want to achieve, and then I work backwards, I think, in almost every setting to understand, okay, how does this need to be resourced? And I usually make most of my decisions, even now as a CEO, make the decisions that way.
Okay. I'll come back to that because we'll delve into a little bit more about you as a CEO. But I just want to understand Vitra Labs. You're focused on IVF. Are you working on something different to the traditional IVF?
Today's episode is brought to you by CNA USA Executive Search. We support life sciences, biotech, medtech, and advanced therapies companies with search solutions built on credibility, deep networks, and an authentic approach to partnership. If you're hiring, planning ahead, or simply want to learn more about what we do, visit cnasearchusa.com. Now, on to today's conversation.
Yeah, we're hoping to really change the entire paradigm of IVF. So traditional IVF as it exists today is really hard on patients. It requires numerous hospital visits. It requires multiple, usually more than one or two, daily injections of hormones to stimulate the production of egg cells by the ovaries. And many women can't tolerate hormone stimulation. And there's 37% of women, for example, drop out of the IVF treatment process before they complete the cycle or get pregnant. So there's a lot of issues that can be addressed with modern biotechnology tools, and that's what we're here to do. So what Vitra is doing is we are collecting eggs from immature follicles. So we don't stimulate patients at all with hormones, and rather we retrieve these immature eggs, and then we give them biological cues in kind of a lab environment in a dish to mature outside of the body. And what that does is it eliminates, all the injections that patients go through, and it also eliminates all the side effects from those injections.
Oh, wow.
And hopefully we make this much more accessible and much less invasive for patients, but also much cheaper because you're eliminating the need for the hormone medication and the monitoring costs, which is kind of a significant portion of IVF. That's the idea. And that's what we've kind of developed our first product to do that. And we're going to be offering it to the patients who need this most first. So women who have active cancer and can't undergo hormone stimulation, women with endometriosis who have severe cycling pain. There's a number of women who could really kind of benefit from this technology, and it's their only option. But as we kind of develop this and get it approved by the FDA, we hope that this will eventually be the standard of care. I really do believe that women deserve rigorous science. We haven't really delivered a lot therapeutically to change IVF in the last 40 years. And I really think it's time to make this process better and make it work better for a lot of patients who it's not working for right now.
And it's also kind of catching up with the contraception things that have advanced. Now there are so many products on the market that are hormone-free contraceptive options for women. Evofem is a company I know that are really big in that market, and I'm sure that there are others. So it seems to me like a natural progression that why do we need to pump ourselves full of hormones for something to work when there are other alternatives, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had a unique experience in that I've probably seen a lot of pictures of super ovulated ovaries. If you see what hormone stimulation does in a natural cycle, an ovary will only really mature and ovulate, so release one egg. And so only that egg will really reach the follicle that houses that egg will be the only one in the ovary to reach its full size. And it's pretty big. It's like a golf ball size. So you're taking hormones and you're forcing, 15 to 20 follicles to mature at once in the ovary. That's not what the ovary was built to do. So it just grows to 5 times its natural size and volume, essentially. So it's no wonder that women have ovarian hyperstimulation, because those full-grown follicles are just ready to burst out, but you're giving them hormones to prevent ovulation. So you're forcing them to just kind of keep growing and keep growing and keep pushing the ovary out and out. And there is a better way to do it. We just need to kind of continue developing it and making it better and better until it's as efficacious as regular traditional IVF.
So spurred on by you won the Distinguished Achievement in Science by the Gladstone Institute in 2022, and joined the list of Forbes 30 under 30 in 2023. So you're bowling along there. What does being a CEO mean to you?
That's a great question. It's a wonderful job. It's a very hard job, but I think I complain about it to my husband a lot, I will say. So he's going to watch this podcast and be like, I thought it was the hardest thing. But it's really, really hard because you do feel that as a solo founder as well, I don't know if it's the founder piece or the CEO piece, but you feel that the fate of the company is on your shoulders in some way. And that's true, right? Like you're responsible for funding.
Buck stops with you, right?
Yeah, people's job, the scientists, the team. It just feels like it's this thing that's precarious when in the startup phases, and that's how I felt when we were starting up. I don't feel that way anymore, luckily, and I think it's gotten a lot more fun since we've been able to establish the team and have great results and kind of have traction and momentum, and now then we're moving towards clinical translation. So it feels more stable and better now. But in the early days, I think what it meant to me was just this tenacity and kind of conviction in your own ability to make this happen. And that's really hard when you will have a lot of signals. You'll have positive signals, but you'll also have a lot of negative signals. And I would just constantly turning over new rocks and just finding worms under every rock that I turn over. Things, I don't know if that's the best. You finally get comfortable and then you turn over another rock and there's worms and like
there's more crawly things there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always something that you didn't know and that you didn't expect and it didn't anticipate. And it's kind of an issue. And it's always, the next obstacle, the next fire to put out. And you feel at all times pretty poorly prepared maybe for what's to come and what's next. And you're always learning and it's exhausting because you're so humbled that you don't know what's next and you can't possibly predict what's going to hit the fan next. But that part of it is pretty exciting. And I do feel that I have, because of that, been kind of developing as a leader way, 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 way faster than I could ever have in maybe a regular job. It's been kind of a boot camp crash course. I've only been a CEO for 4 years and it's felt like
10.
I feel like 10 years. And I feel like a totally different person and I can see my wrinkles all over my face. Like 4 years ago and my gray hair now. But it's been a fantastic experience and it really, there's nothing better, I think, than being able to kind of set a research direction and put forward something that you really believe in and you want to do. And to get money to do it is the greatest blessing in the world. I'm obsessed with our mission. I'm so lucky that I get to work on something that, can help women get pregnant. I just can't think of anything better than that.
And so was there ever a time in the early days with it where you just thought, I just can't do this?
Yeah.
How did you kind of bring yourself? I'd imagine there was a lot of imposter syndrome as well at that time. Yeah. It's like, how could I know? What did you draw on and how did you draw on it to get yourself through it to where you are now?
Yeah, I remember I have like anxiety induced asthma that I found out. And I would get these panic attacks all the time. The first year of the company. And I remember my now husband and I were planning our wedding and I just didn't plan a single thing for my own wedding. My mom planned it because I was just so busy and I was so stressed and things in the beginning, we pivoted a little bit in the direction of the company and I was just so stressed about how the team was coming together and would we be able to do what I told the investors that I wanted to do. And it all ended up being fine, but I was just so overwhelmed by this that I would have these panic attacks all the time. And I would tell my husband, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know if I'm the right person to do it. I'm, weak and soft and I want to cry. I don't do that anymore. I think I have gotten a little rougher around the edges, but, and what really helped me, my husband is an endurance athlete and I think his perspective in this whole situation helped me through. He was like, I know you're stressed. It's temporary. You're going to train into it. This is your dream to want to do this. Just stick it out. And if you're still having panic attacks in a few weeks from now, I never heard you say, I want to quit. You're always like, I don't know if I can do this. Mm-hmm. Until I hear, I want to quit, I don't want to do this anymore, then let's keep going and let's just see. And he's an incredibly hard worker. And I am also, I think, an incredibly hard worker. I just wasn't used to the interpersonal thing combined with the science, combined with the business and raising, and just, it felt overwhelming. I needed him to help guide me through in a lot of ways.
Because that really is that's an incredible person to have by your side while you're going through something like that.
Yeah. He's so tough. And so I was glad to have him because I think he was able to donate some of that perseverance to me in this time where I really needed it. I hate this advice because I do want to just give more general advice for other founders who, might not be married or might not have a partner to support them. But just from my personal experience, it was just very, very hard to do it without that support. I can't imagine without it. But I also, I will say at the same time, I had a just a fantastic CEO coach. So versatile in how he coaches me. At the beginning, it was all about imposter syndrome. I think we talked about it almost every week. And now we talk about business strategy and go to market and, financials and who to hire. And it's just changed so much. I just needed a little bit of support to find, confidence and conviction in what we were doing and to feel easy in my own skin in order to kind of then blossom into what I'm proud of the kind of CEO I am now. But he was also fantastic too, my CEO coach, Ron, who, if for anybody who is listening to this, who, doesn't have a partner, but thinks about starting a company, I couldn't recommend more to have a great CEO coach, because I do think it's possible to do it alone. I do think having support and having help is so underrated. You don't think of how your mental energy is affected until you're down in the pit and you want to quit. And
I think a lot of people, though, I think they confuse coaching with teaching, because if you think about it, the best soccer players in the world, the best football players in the world, the best tennis people in the world have all got coaches who work with them constantly to not just, yes, of course, to get there to the peak, but also to stay there. They don't just go, oh, suddenly I don't need the coach, and they all do. But it's looked at in a very different way in business. It's almost seen that, well, you're the CEO, so you should know it all. But that's really not the truth at all. I think good, C-suite coach, I think every new CEO, everybody considering being a CEO should have one, because otherwise, how are you even going to know what you don't know to be the very best that you could be?
I think there's also maybe a little bit of there's a cultural aspect of that in startup world, maybe in biotech and tech, where the founder archetype, it's pretty stereotyped in who you need to be. And I think maybe it's seen as a bit of weakness that you need this, or that you need the support mentally or emotionally, which I think people have CEO coaches for strategy. But I think for me, at least, a big part of it was the emotional kind of, you're managing people maybe for the first time. And that's crazy, because most effective managers have years and years of experience to get to that point where they're really effective in, putting projects together, dealing with a lot of different personalities on the team, making sure that they're working all well together. And as a founder, especially if you're spinning out your own research, you're a postdoc or a PhD student and a first-time founder, and you have no experience in industry whatsoever. So it's just ridiculous to think that you know how to do it by yourself. You don't. And I think that what I've realized, what's been a big lesson to me, is to just accept all the help that I can get, because there are people out there who, almost everybody is more experienced in industry than me. And my investors are, more experienced in pitching and raising and have seen founders build companies and other founders. What can I learn from them? I think staying humble and open-minded is so important. And so I don't like that, maybe that energy of we need to pretend like we know everything and that we have everything under control, and that, I'm just going to sell you this narrative constantly. No, I think it should be always, how am I learning and growing, and how am I taking information from externally and being the best I can be in my job, given that I've never done this before. And,
I think, to be honest, I think that's why so many startups, they explode on the scene, and then fail dismally, because they invariably have overcommitted, overstaffed, overteamed, over everything, and suddenly it's all got very overwhelming. And speaking of which, you have a new project that you're working on. Do we have a coach for this project, or are we going alone with that? Yeah, good old mum. Mum's come into that.
Yeah, her and my dad are actually here, and that's another, I guess, of my support system. I don't know how I would have gotten through this phase of being a CEO without them, but yes.
I think we should explain what this phase of the CEO, your new staff addition, is your first child,
yes.
Sophia.
Yes, baby girl Sophia. Yes,
adorable. So yes, and managing Sophia, I think, is going to be a very different situation, and working that.
In the last few weeks, she's a brand new addition. It is so hard to be a parent. You know, I was so cocky going in. I was like, I run on very little sleep. I've had to be not as a CEO. You know, my job has prepared me for this completely, but I really have a completely newfound respect for parents and what they go through. I cannot believe how hard it is. And also, I mean, my perspective on what we're building has really changed in a dramatic way. I used to focus on women and kind of women's choice and giving women more opportunities to control their own reproductive kind of outcomes, right? To give them more chances to get pregnant through IVF if that's what they want. But ever since Sophia came, it is such it's impossible to put into words. I think if you're a parent, you probably can empathize with what I'm feeling, but it's such a new level of love and joy. And I just think about her all the time.
Fear. And there's nothing else like. My baby girl is 33 now, but it never goes away. I remember that first few days with her like it was yesterday. And I'm like, what is this? What am I doing? And there's so many emotions there.
Yeah. I
so many.
Believe she wasn't in this world, and then she was born, and now she is, and I'm just so changed for the better. And I can't imagine life without her. It really gives me such a new perspective on what we're building. And I told Christina, I'm coming back reinvigorated by what we're doing. If we can even just help one woman get pregnant who wasn't able to have kids before, that will fulfill me in its entirety. It is such a special, amazing thing to have this gift. And if I could just even give this gift to one woman, that will be enough for me. And I really truly believe that and have that purpose kind of renewed in my own life being a mom, but also kind of in the research now it's crazy how it feels good to have, undeniable purpose, I guess. And to have this whole thing that loves you and is dependent on you is amazing.
And I have to say, if it's anything like my experience, Sophia will be your driving force for everything going forward. When you get to the stage of negotiating with a 2-year-old on circumstances, suddenly negotiating with investors and stuff like that, it's like a piece of cake. It's like, oh, please, I did this before breakfast today. Let's not worry about it. But I'm so pleased for you, because it's an incredible journey that you're on now. And it will be like, what was life like before Sophia? It was. Listen, it's been such a pleasure meeting you and hearing your story. I guess my final question to you is, what about tomorrow's CEO and tomorrow's founders? If you had one piece of advice to give to somebody who was contemplating taking that journey, what would it be?
I think you at some point said you don't know what you don't know. And that's so true for when you're starting out. And so I think you can fantasize, what different roles will look like. But I think what helped me a lot was actually, I'm really actually kind of extroverted, but I don't like networking a lot. And it was just very uncomfortable for me to go to these networking events, and talk to people. The first few events that I went to, I didn't know anybody. And it was very awkward, and I didn't look forward to it. But it was necessary because I needed to know what the founder life was going to be like. And I wanted to see if I could raise money. I wanted to see if I could meet investors that could, take a shot on this idea that I had for the startup. And I needed to talk to a lot of different people. And I think you really need to get educated before you make the leap one way or another. I think you just need to do a lot of diligence.
Do your due diligence and know what you're going into as much as you can.
And meet the people. And in that diligence, it will naturally kind of surface these people who can help you. And you should absolutely accept the help over and over again. As a scientist, and I always wanted to believe everything is kind of like a meritocracy. If you have the best science, that will float to the surface and people will see that. But actually, they won't. If you don't spend time on working on your narrative and how you're gonna explain something to a non-scientific audience, then it's not useful to people. And if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't go meet investors, then how are they supposed to read your mind and come to you? So really, you have to be tenacious. You have to fight for what you want, and you have to be sure of what you want before you pursue it. And you have to put yourself as much as you can into positions that'll get you there. So when I started, I was just a postdoc. So I was, taking, Startup 101 through UCSF, the Global Entrepreneurship Program, any free resource that I could through the school. And then they had, networking events. I joined Nucleate, which was also kind of student sponsored. And so you start small and then you slowly build up your network and your conviction. That's the advice that I would have, that you just have to be informed, be persistent, accept help and
be
build
humble.
And be humble. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Okay.
I really hope, good luck to any would-be founders are thinking of, doing this and listening to this. I hope that you do it. It's a really fun job. It's incredibly rewarding, and you'll learn a lot, and it'll be hard and scary, but it will be great.
Nothing worth having isn't hard or scary, is it? That's what makes the good times all the much better, is when you've gone through the hard and scary times. Well, Ivana, I'm hoping that your scary times are behind you now. Although I think they're just to come with Sophia, bless you, but that's a different type of scary times. And I wish you every success with the company, with getting that first woman to be able to be in the position that you're in, of having that little bundle of joy that will change their lives forever. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was.
Hopefully we can do a follow-up in a couple of years' time and see how Sophia's getting on in managing you.
Doing the managing.
Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. You as well.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of She Leads Biotech. If today's story inspired you, subscribe, follow, and comment. Because when one woman's voice is heard, many more find theirs. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep leading.